Well, we are just a few weeks away from WWDC, and one of the features that Apple is expected to announce in iOS 19 is AirPods Live Translation. So similar to what you get to the Google Pixel Buds, your AirPods Pro can be used as a real-time translation tool. They'll be able to listen to conversations in a foreign language and translate them into your preferred language, so it helps you to understand the voices and the sounds around you. And your AirPods Pro can also translate spoken language during phone calls, videos, and other media, making communication seamless no matter where you are. Now, hopefully this will actually come to fruition because Apple has recently been making promises and then not being able to deliver on those. So it'll be interesting to see if this comes through. When RCS was announced to be supported on the iPhone, it actually started to help break down some of the barriers in the messaging. Now, if you're outside of the US, a lot of people do use WhatsApp. However, one of the downsides to RCS messaging was the fact that there was no end-to-end encryption. However, the GSMA has announced that the latest update to RCS will add the long-awaited security layer so that both Google and Apple will support it. So starting with the RCS Universal Profile 3.0, you'll now be able to start getting end-to-end encryption on your messages. So this is something that you already have with iMessage, and you also get that with RCS messages on Android devices. So that's the fact this will now be cross-platform will be a little bit better. Like I say, outside the US, WhatsApp seems to be the default, but it is good to have end-to-end encryption options on any messaging platform so that you have that freedom of choice. Now, in our last episode, we talked about how Google Gemini was going to be replacing the Google Assistant on all latest Pixel phones and some other Android devices as well. However, now, if you want to, you can actually use ChatGPT to replace the assistant on your Pixel devices as well. The newest beta version of ChatGPT has added the option to make the AI model your default option according to Android Authority. This comes part of version 1.2025.070, and the default digital assistant page is now lists ChatGPT as an option. The beauty of Android is it is quite open and there are lots of workarounds and different options available. Now, there was a tool available where you could actually use ChatGPT as your default assistant, but it's obviously not going to be as seamless as if it comes from ChatGPT themselves. So without this little workaround now, it should be a lot easier. And we are certainly going to be testing this to see how it actually compares as a default assistant. Apple has quietly launched a new app in the App Store called Map Surveyors. And it is unfortunately only available in the US at the moment. But basically, you install it and then you can use it to update and improve Apple Maps by collecting data such as images of street signs and other road sign details as well on an assigned route. Now, when I last used Apple Maps, it was over a year ago, and I found that one of the turn-ins, it was just not showing on the map. It would make me go past that, down the road a couple of minutes, and then around the roundabout and come back rather than just take a right turn at the junction. So something like this would be perfect, so you could actually add that and update it. Now, in my testing previously, Google Maps and Apple Maps were pretty good for their own things, but I just found that Google was slightly better. Like I say, it's been over a year since I've used it, so it's probably improved. However, tools like this just makes it so much easier to report problems, and hopefully it will get fixed a bit quicker. Now, since the AirPods have launched, they've received several firmware upgrades. However, the actual steps to getting it to upgrade has kind of been a bit of a mystery. There's been some tutorials out there, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. However, Apple now offers its support page with step-by-step instructions of how to actually do the process. So first off, you need to make sure that your AirPods are in Bluetooth range of your iPhone, your iPad or Mac that's connected to Wi-Fi. You then need to put your AirPods in the charging case and close the lid. Plug the charging cable into the charging case and then plug the other end of the cable into a USB charger or port. You need to keep the lid of the charging case closed and wait for at least 30 minutes for the firmware to update. Then you need to open the lid of the charger case and reconnect your AirPods to your iPhone, iPad or Mac, and then check the firmware version again. Apple does note that if you still can't update your firmware, then you should be resetting your AirPods and then try again. Now, with AirPods Max, it's very similar. So again, you're going to make sure that your AirPods Max are in Bluetooth range of your iPhone, iPad, or Mac. That's, again, connected to Wi-Fi. Plug the charger cable into the bottom right earphone and then plug the other end of the cable into either the port or the USB charger. Again, you need to wait at least 30 minutes for the firmware to update. Then reconnect your AirPods Max to your phone, your iPad, or your Mac, and then check the firmware version again. Well, that's it for today, guys. I hope that this information has been useful to you, and we will catch you on the next episode.